Canada, making a standalone linked data project operational. So I think, Sharon, I think you said you were going to be, if you're ready, you can just go ahead and share your screen and start the slide.
Great, thank you. Perfect. I'll just turn that on. Let me share screen here. All right. Hope that everyone can see that okay. And once it comes up, does that look all right?
Yeah.
Great,
Good.
thank you. Wonderful. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you very much to the conference organizers for the opportunity to present, to Jeanette and Michelle for facilitating and moderating the session, and to Ryan for a really fantastic and intriguing presentation that was really interesting. My colleague Danoosh and I are going to kind of do a bit of a tag team presentation today on an initiative at the University of Alberta Library to develop a linked data-driven discovery platform for theses and dissertations. Just before we begin, Danoosh and I would like to acknowledge that we're presenting today from Amiskwaciy, Waskagan, Beaver Hills House, also known as Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is located on Treaty 6 territory and within Métis Region 4. We are very grateful to the Indigenous stewards of these lands for the opportunity to live and work here, and commit ourselves to both truth and reconciliation through building reciprocal and respectful relationships. We'd also like to acknowledge the many individuals and organizations who have and continue to be active in the development of the CanLink initiative. So briefly over the next few minutes, this is what we'd like to talk about. Just to give a really quick history of the CanLink project, to look a little bit at where we're at now and a little bit under the hood at the data and the technology, hoping to do, fingers crossed, knock on wood, a quick demo of the live site, and then wrap up with some comments and thoughts on sustainability and operationalization, as well as a few next steps. So CanLink, how did we get to where we are today? The Canadian Linked Data Initiative, or CLDI, was formed in 2016 as a collaboration among the largest academic libraries in Canada, as well as the National Libraries of Canada and Quebec, to work together on issues related to and around linked data in order to provide a path to linked data readiness for our institutions. One of the working groups of the project, the Digital Projects Working Group, really wanted to focus on digital content and to develop a specific project that would allow members to get some hands-on work with linked data technologies and principles, and create a product that could really demonstrate the potential of linked data. So the group decided that theses and dissertations, which are really valuable, unique resources, but are often overlooked in the scholarly community, might be a good collection to work with. And so the CanLink project was born. The bulk of the work in this initial phase in 2017 was done by the members of the working group itself, so the individuals from the organizations, as well as a computing science student that was funded through a Canadian federal program called Young Canada Works. And the focus of this initial stage was really on the infrastructure and the foundations. So really looking at the data model and some tools for metadata transformation, those things that we could use to then grow and develop the project further over time. So as I mentioned, a key component of this initial phase was to develop a data model that leveraged existing linked data ontologies and vocabularies, but that also captured, those aspects that are most relevant and unique to theses and dissertations. So the model was sure to capture those things that we expect to capture, like title or date or subject, but we also wanted it to include properties like supervisor or department or faculty or degree name, those things that are unique and important about theses and dissertations. So the data for this initial phase of the project consisted of sample record sets, so small sample record sets from all of the working group members, which arrived in multiple formats. The bulk of these were in MARC, so they MARC binary records. And so the development of a tool to convert the MARC to the RDF based on the CanLink Ontology was a big chunk of the work in this early phase, although we also developed processes for handling CSV and RDF XML. One of the working group members is very active in the linked data community and had previously developed a package that could be used to easily spin up sort of linked data proof of concept projects. And so we chose to use that package, which allowed us to quickly sort of spin up a basic linked data site, which included Virtuoso as the triple store underlying it, and a very, very basic user interface built on Apache and PHP. So we spun this up and we ingested the data and we hosted it in a Compute Canada cloud research space. So CanLink 1.0, I guess if you would like to call it that, this initial version of CanLink had a very, oh, sorry, my apologies. This is over to Danoosh for this slide. Sorry, go ahead, Danoosh.
Thank you, Sharon. And well, thank you everyone for being here. So yeah, as Sharon was saying, CanLink 1.0, as we might call it, was actually a very basic website, and it has some information on the project itself and how to get involved. Also, a SparkQL endpoint was available for those who were so inclined to do some queries. And oh yeah, sure, I can do that. Just a sec, sorry. I have to position this. Okay, so hope everybody can see me now. All right, good. So as I was saying, apart from that, a SparkQL endpoint, also a basic query tool was also available through the UI, which helps doing some basic queries. Also, a basic integration with GitHub was available, which enabled us to add any missing URLs through the GitHub issues. Code and the data were made available publicly for those who want to use it. So this was where the first phase of the project came to an end. So we were available to demonstrate the potential of linked data for this work. And so all the efforts were shifted to growing the project and focusing more on the data side of things, and of course having a better user experience. Well, as it is often the case, the work continued, but sporadically. So CLDI has faded as institution gained more experience with linked data and where they were at with each project, each stage of the linked data project that they were at. Excuse me. Sorry. And well, so the institution were doing this work off of the side of the desk, sort of speak. But however, U of A was still committed to this work, and so we took over the stewardship of it. So steps were taken to show how this project could be operationalized and made more sustainable. This includes like exploration of data through exploration, data gathering through harvesting rather than submissions by individual institutions, and consolidating the infrastructure of our project by reducing the number of languages used and moving to moving the data to a triple store environment that we were more comfortable with, well, which was here, namely GraphDB for us. In late fall 2019, an unexpected opportunity to push the project forward came up. So the U of A had the open call for internal application for some funding for a one-time project that would directly benefit our user communities. The chance to focus some energy and money on this project was not going to be missed, and so we applied for it, and we just received under $50,000 to work on this project. We focus our effort mainly on the on the website design and development side of things, so aiming to have a richer user experience, which would help us to tell a good story. Our team was working on the data side of things as part of our day-to-day daily activities, and so with this we were able to hire a contract developer and a designer to work with us for a period of several months. The pandemic unfortunately slowed things down a little bit, but eventually we were able to work around this and develop something that we feel is more intuitive and exciting for the user, and of course most importantly, it's sustainable now. Before going to a quick demo, we just want to highlight a couple of things about this version of the project. So this is the data model, which is very much based on the CanLink 1.0 data model, which of course it's streamlined and improved upon. It still captures the critical components that we had, as well as some of the things that are unique to thesis and dissertations. Well, as it's embedded in the website itself, it also highlights some of the challenges that we had with the data. So let's say, for example, despite its usefulness, many of the institutions do not cover the supervisor information in their metadata, and both department and discipline information, as you can imagine, differ greatly across the institution. So, but yet these information are some of the most important properties from the user's perspective. And well, finally, this slide shows the basic technology stack and code that underlines the website to support and maintain this. And as you can see, this was kept to a minimum, and we leveraged some of the open source technologies and also some open web standards. And with this, I would like to hand it back to Sharon for a quick demo. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Danoosh. And with all luck, we will go to the site and open that up, and I hope folks can see that. Great. Hopefully that's all working. Looks good. Okay. Thanks very much, Danoosh. So this is sort of where we're at with the site today, which is live, and you can access it here. So the landing page is a very simple, kind of clean look. We have the logos of the institutions who have some representation in our data. Some institutions we have more data for right now than for others, but we're hoping to have full sets for the various institutions over time. There's information about the project and contact information. And one of the things that we don't currently have our Sparkle endpoint available for users of the site. So what we wanted to do was to make sure that if folks were interested, that they would have access to the full data set. So we do have it available for download in several different serializations. So users can come and grab the full data set as XML or Turtle or whatever they would like if they're interested in gathering the data and manipulating it in another program or in another site. So we have that for now, which is at least an interim step until we have the Sparkle endpoint exposed for others to use. So the site itself is really based at this point on sort of a basic simple search. So there's browsing capabilities as we dive into the site, but from the main page, you can initiate a search. If you want to just browse the entire collection right off the bat, you can just put your cursor in there and it takes you to the entire set. But we'll just pop back to the home page and try out a search. So if I just do a search here, let's try diversity. So what this does is it does a search across the key metadata elements for the theses and brings us to the landing page where we can do the things we might like to expect. We can further refine our search results. We can visualize them in a different way. That was a big part of working with the designer and the developer, was really trying to create a rich experience that is a lot more exciting and approachable than a Sparkle endpoint, for example, just to create a richer experience. So we see our query is listed here in the query box. And then what we have on the left is the results list, which shows us the total number of results on a certain number of pages. The brief results that we have here are the title, the author, institution, the degree, and the date. From here, the short results, you can click on an item. So if we click on this one here, you'll see it takes you to an interim screen that's got that same basic data, as well as an abstract for those abstracts that we have. If you're interested, you can click out to the full text of the PDF thesis, which goes back to the home repository. So in this case, it takes us back to the University of Alberta's repository. So we're not harvesting and housing the PDFs, just the metadata. From this basic search screen, you can also open a fuller record. So this is where you can find additional information when we have it. So that same basic information at the top, title, author, date, institution, and degree. But we also have the subjects when they're available. If we have a supervisor, we have that available, department or faculty, as well as discipline. Again, you can link out to the full text, and you can also see the individual results as linked data in, again, multiple serializations, RDF XML, JSON, in triples, whatever the case may be. And you can download that if you like, or just view it on screen. So trying to give folks some opportunities to engage with the data in that way as well, if they would like. So that's just sort of the full item screen. And again, the data is there for the theses we have it for, but if we don't have it, then it's not there at this point. So if we go back to our results screen, the really a critical part of this is we really wanted to allow folks to visualize their search results in different ways. So the default visualization is a map view, and the map is based on the location of the institution to which the thesis or dissertation was submitted. So we see the various circles on the map up here of Canada. So you can see out here at UBC, if we hover over, we see we have 1,066 theses from UBC. If we go way over to the east to the Memorial University of Newfoundland, we can see that we have 17 theses in this set that come from that institution. If I'm interested in looking at those, I can just click on the dot and it refines my results to just those 17 that I'm interested in, and I can explore further. If I want to sort of close out of that, I just click out, remove memorial, and now I'm back to my fuller set. We have a word cloud visualization as well, again, which is based on the subject terms from the thesis. So again, sort of a fairly standard word cloud display, displays bigger for words that appear more frequently. So we can start to get a sense of the kinds of topics and issues that are discussed in these theses. And again, if I click on an individual word, it will facet the results. It'll winnow those results down to the theses that just have that combination of topics. We have a tree map, which allows us to get a quick sense of the spread of the theses over time. So based on the years of the theses. So again, if you hover over, you can see the number of theses in the set that are on this topic that come from 2008, for example. And again, clicking on that winnows your results down to just the set you're interested in. And then we've used sort of a bubble visualization for both the institutions, if folks just want a really quick other way of quickly visualizing the institutions that these theses represent, they can do so here. And the same with degrees, if you want to get a really quick overview of the number of Masters of Arts degrees on this topic, or Doctor of Philosophy, etc. So all represented here. So just different ways of interacting with the data in perhaps a more visual sort of way. From this page, you can also then winnow down your search terms or search results if you're interested. So if I if I'm interested in an author like Goddard, for example, I can click there and I see that now we have one author whose name is Goddard, who has done a thesis on this topic, and I can then explore further from there. I can close that out if I'm interested in a particular subject along with diversity. I can use the type ahead and I can find that there are 2 theses on the topics of diversity and equity in this particular result set. Same with the years. I can limit my date range and work with a subset from there, as well as the degree. So I can see that there are 7 results in Masters of Education that deal with the topic of diversity, for example. From here as well, we've got it set up so that you can share your search results through various social media if that's something that you are interested in. If you want to start your search over to refresh, you simply hit reset. It will clear everything, come back to the entire full set of data that we have, and then you can start to explore from there. So this is sort of where we're at with the site as it stands today. So with that, I will just click out of there and then I'll go back to our slides. Okay, so reflecting on this project over its numerous phases since about 2016 has provided some insight and some lessons learned for us. One thing that really has been reconfirmed for us is that theses and dissertations are very much valued as rich resources in the community, and that really do contribute to the knowledge ecosystem, but that they are still challenging in many ways to find and to access. In addition, and likely of no surprise to any of us, of course, as Danoosh alluded to, the metadata for these resources really differs in richness and in quality between institutions, even within institutions, and over time. And certainly I can speak to that from the University of Alberta perspective. Our thesis metadata varies greatly over time. And this really makes the modeling and sort of transforming at scale quite challenging. As well, while OAI definitely makes this work easier, it still poses challenges. So, for example, we found that for some institutions, the OAI DC metadata was really the fullest metadata that we could choose to work with, while for others, it was the OAI ETDMS, the standard that's used for electronic theses and dissertations. In some cases, that was the best metadata. And in some cases, actually, what we would want, what would be ideal, would be a combination of aspects from both of these, which unfortunately then comes with challenges in terms of scalability and sustainability. And I think that sort of the realization that there is going to be a need for some customization for each institution is a realization that that we have come to, and I think we need to acknowledge, and we need to find ways to address effectively and efficiently. And lastly, this sort of reiterated for us the fact that the repository space is ever changing. So for example, we found that the metadata harvested over time could and did change, and that's not necessarily surprising or a bad thing at all. Sometimes data was enhanced and so on. But then also that platform migrations, for example, are a reality and do impact the gathering and the use of metadata. So we found with one institution, for example, between our first harvesting and our next harvesting, they had changed repository platforms. So we had broken URLs to the PDFs and so on and so forth. So we need to think about how we account for those in our processes and our workflows, including the review and the update of existing metadata. So throughout the phases of this project, we've taken steps towards sustainability and operationalization. So this includes the shifting to harvesting through OAI, as well as developing and documenting our data processing pipelines and working at scale as much as possible. To this point, we've done very little that hasn't been able to be done across the sets in their entirety. So using open source tools and technologies has also positioned us well to move this from a one-off or standalone project to an ongoing supported platform for discovery of theses and dissertations. This doesn't mean, of course, that it hasn't come with challenges, some of which are really critical and some of which we've talked about already around metadata, for example. But another example is around the long-term hosting of the infrastructure. So currently this is in a cloud space that falls under a research program. But so we need to think about how can we collaboratively work with other organizations to think about more robust and sustainable hosting, and how can we engage others in perhaps in the work of modeling for the harvested data and in automating those harvests. How essentially can we make this a living and growing tool rather than something that becomes stale very quickly? And how can we find the resources to continue its development alongside all of the work that all of us have as part of our everyday? So just to wrap up, in terms of next steps, we have a lot of things in mind that we'd love to be able to do. We're continuing to wrestle with some of these questions I just talked about and taking steps to try and answer them. In the near term, we have some minor revisions to the homepage to complete, as well as some harvesting and mapping from additional institutions. We're also thinking about how we might enhance the data to address some of those metadata inconsistencies and omissions, such as departments or supervisor names, using techniques such as text mining. We're also thinking through the long-term hosting question, of course, as well as how to engage the broader repository community and promote the project. We're hoping to do some more in-depth user testing to better understand, just how well the site is working as it is and understand what would make it better. And we're also looking forward to submitting our data to the Linked Infrastructure for Network Cultural Scholarship, or LINCS project, so that it can be leveraged alongside other linked data, research data from projects and institutions across Canada. So with all of these efforts, we continue to try and focus on growth and sustainability and usability and profile so that we can take this project from sort of proof of concept to product. So thank you very much, and I'll stop sharing my screen. So we have some time, hopefully a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, we do have a few questions here. One asks, is there any plan to include theses and dissertations of other Canadian universities into this collection in the future?
Yep, absolutely. So currently we have on the site, we have the logos of the institutions we have theses from. So we have the initial working group was some of the bigger institutions. And so we have more representation from some of the bigger ones like University of Alberta, University of Toronto, and so on. But our goal is to include institutions, all the institutions that we can harvest through OAI. So we do have some smaller institutions there now, but the goal absolutely is to have all of the institutions that we can get metadata from included within the portal. That's the dream.
Great. And then a related question is from someone asking, how can we submit theses from our institutions into CanLink?
Wonderful question. So if you want to be in touch with us, I think I'll make sure our contact info is there. Be in touch. That would be really fantastic. And we can talk about either getting a harvest going, or if you don't have a repository set up that we can harvest from, we would absolutely love to chat with you about other ways we could get that metadata in. So for example, we still do have the ability to transform MARC data into the format we need for CanLink. So that would be great. Do feel free to reach out and we can have a conversation about that. And we were hoping that, our goal was to try and get the site a little bit more sustainable, get it a little bit more user-friendly and engaging. And once we did that, then we'll start reaching out to institutions to let them know that, hey, this is out here and we'd love you to be able to participate. So absolutely, that would be great.
And then a question about whether other institutions, including those outside of Canada, could take advantage of your model. Have you had inquiries from any other institutions who want to manage their theses and dissertations like this?
That is a good question. I don't think we have had anything. There are lots of conversations within Canada, but certainly not outside of Canada. But yeah, we would love to have others, work together with us on the model and on the data, and we'd love to have our data submitted to others. If there's an international portals, or if others are interested in the code, all of our code is up on GitHub. Everything. The idea is to make everything publicly available, data model, code, and everything, so that if another country is interested in taking the model and building it and growing it and taking it to great places, that would be just amazing. Yeah.
And another question is, you must have subjects in both French and English. How do you manage that?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. Yes, we do have subjects in both English and French. For folks who know, we have in Canada, we have a couple different controlled vocabularies that are used. And we do have subjects that are in in French. And what we did is we currently the RVM, the French language subject vocabulary heavily used in Canada, is not yet available in a linked data format. I know they're working on getting it into that format. So what we did initially is we tried to pull URIs from Rameau, which is the French language vocabulary from the National Library of France, which is problematic, of course, in many ways. We didn't necessarily get a lot of matches in that way. So what we also did for the project is we actually took the Canadian subject headings, which at that time existed as RDF, as in a linked data format, only in sort of a proof of concept state. And so what we did is we ingested that, and we essentially minted a URI for each of the subject terms in CanLink. And so I think, and Danoosh, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think we do have sort of a unique CanLink minted URI for some of those French language subject headings. But it's really, of course, just most useful inside the CanLink portal. But we do look forward to working with RVM when it's in its linked data format. And I know they're working on that, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Sharon and Danoosh? Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah. Jeanette, did you want to say anything? Okay, I want to thank our presenters and Jeanette for facilitating, and all of you for participating and asking great questions.
I just
Thanks,
want
everybody.
to remind people that they can still access the Slack channel after the presentation. So if you want to continue the discussion, you can do it there.
Excellent. I'll put that in the
excellent.
chat.
Yeah. Sorry, I was muted earlier. And with that, I guess we can just end it then. Thanks, everybody.